issue for quite some time that liberals and the Democratic Party has made a major issue and major topic within the Black American community, right? The 45 to 50 million of us, the so-called 15%. For quite some time, even the disparities within our population. On one sense, you have the Census Bureau that doesn't really get it right. They only have us at 13.6%. I would like to believe that we're closer to 15% than anything. And those numbers are going to come more prevalent as we go through this video. There are some things that I would like to point out that Professor Lumumba, who is a Kenyan scholar, that spoke truth to power when he was doing an interview with CNN. But prior to that, I must point out the president of Kenya and how he spoke truth to power when also doing a CNN interview. Now, before we get into that, for those who may have been on the short bus, we're talking about the alphabet community: lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, intersexuality, asexual, and of course, a lot more. Isn't it important for us to understand these things? Now, even before we get into the first video, there are some things I want you guys to understand from a historical standpoint. Because in order for us to comprehend, America's as well as the Western powers, their approach towards Africa and their LGBTQ rights, we must acknowledge the historical context and colonial legacies that continue to shape the relationship between these continents, between all these different people, because many African countries were once colonized by Western powers, right? All the European countries, as well as some fashions of America. And the remnants of the colonialism still resonate today, because this often leads to a paternalistic attitude on the part of the Western nations, right? Believing that they have a moral obligation to dictate social policies and human rights agendas in African nations. Now, just because of the colonization of these countries and the way that they took control of their economies as well as their social environments, you don't see that same smoke when it comes to Asian countries. You don't see that same control when it comes to Middle Eastern countries. You do not. And that must be pointed out as well. Because when we look at it, family, conversely, Middle Eastern and Asian countries have different colonial histories, which may explain why the West is more hesitant to interfere in their so-called internal affairs, right? Because this illustrates a discrepancy in approach rather than an indication of favoritism, some may believe. Because another critical aspect to consider is the interplay between political interests and LGBTQ rights advocacy, because Western powers, UK and America, may leverage the promotion of LGBTQ rights as a means to gain leverage or exert pressure on African leaders like Kenya and Uganda, because these tactics stems from a combination of genuine concern, yeah, right, for human rights and desire to promote their own interests in these particular regions. Because when we look at the upside of this, the Middle East and Asian countries often possess significant geopolitical importance, but even though Africa is the continent with all the resources. Now, when we go back to those Middle Eastern and Asian countries and having that geopolitical importance that may or may not lead Western powers to exercise caution when it comes to criticizing their domestic policies, including LGBTQ rights, this is about strategy and being very strategic, because the importance of these countries, particularly in terms of natural resources, regional stability, and economic partnership, can complicate the approach to advocating the LGBTQ rights in these regions. And mostly we're talking about oil when we're talking about the Middle East. So without further ado, let's take a gander of this video and see how the president of Kenya, President Kenyatta, who is going to speak truth to power to the CNN reporter, who starts off, in my opinion, very, very disrespectful. And hear the underlying attack.
Major issues, and it's a holdover from sort of colonial Victorian, is the issue of sexual preference in many African countries. In Kenya, to be gay, the LGBT community, is illegal. They just want to have equal rights, the same privacy and equality as all other Kenyans do. Is that something that you aspire to for your country?
I want to be very clear.
Fair use, fair use.
Yeah, I will not engage in a subject that is of no, it is not of any major importance to the people and the Republic of Kenya. This is not an issue, as you would want to put it, of...
Correct. And this is the question I ask foundational Black Americans, American descendants of slaves, descendants of American slaves, U.S. freedmen, whoever you want to call yourself, where your lineage is based here from the slave fields of these United States of America. Here's the question. Should we listen to President Kenyatta and understand that Black Americans in our country, yeah, I'm taking their issues, their problems, their story, and making it relevant and correlating factors within the Black American community, because here's the thing, they have us focused on everything except our bottom line. Our bottom line is economics. Our bottom line is reparation. Our bottom line is Black empowerment. But they will have us to believe that all these other things hold a higher level of importance within the Black American community, and it does not.
Human rights, this is an issue of society, of our own base as a culture, as a people, regardless of which community you come from. This is not acceptable. This is not agreeable. This is not about Uhuru Kenyatta saying yes or no. This is an issue that the people of Kenya themselves, who have bestowed upon themselves a constitution, right, after several years, have clearly stated that this is not a subject that they are willing to engage in, yeah, at this time and moment. In years to come, possibly long after I'm president, who knows? Maybe after.
And see, this is the part I totally understand, because when we look at it, family, culturally and religiously, differences also play a crucial role in shaping Western nations, right? The advocacy on LGBTQ rights, and many African nations have deeply ingrained cultural and religious belief that view homosexuality as taboo or even disgusting or even immoral. Challenging these deeply rooted convictions can be met with strong resistance, as you hit here, because in comparison, Middle Eastern and Asian countries also have conservative cultural and religious attitudes towards homosexuality, and you do not see the Western powers showing up at their doorstep say, hey, you ready to do an interview talking about why your country is so anti-LGBTQ, even though that these countries that they're going to have some of the highest rates of poverty in the world? Because when we look at it, the West may be weary of appearing culturally insensitive or engaging in cultural imperialism by forcefully advocating for the LGBTQ rights in these particular regions. Because when demanding, and that's what they're doing to these African countries by employing sanctions on them, they're demanding LGBTQ rights in these African countries. See, the Western powers often frame their stances as an extension of the global fight for human rights. The global fight for human rights. So my question is this: where are our human rights at? See, during this whole global stage, whether it be slavery, Jim Crow, or current day discrimination, racism, and bias that non-Black people have for Black Americans who roots stand from this country, where are our human rights? Where are all these human rights organizations? Where is CNN pulling up in the hood and the ghettos and diving deep into the problem, which they already know? But why they're not on the forefront and talking with and to the Democratic parties that always win the Black vote, because they always tally us in, they always draw it in with these so-called sideways promises that they give us, but it yields no results. But this is what we get. This is what we get. We have to lean and listen to other world leaders on why they are not allowing that to be one of the major issues on the front foot in their political and their social changing as a country. This is very important. This is very important for us to understand the dynamics, and not just in this country, but understand the global domination of how the Western powers are really trying to disarm melanated people around the world. Because the distinction underscores the challenges faced by Western powers in balancing their commitment to universal so-called human rights with the principles of respecting each nation's right to govern its own internal affairs in autonomy.
Our society will have reached a stage where those are issues that people are willing, freely, and open to discuss. I have to be honest with you. And that is the position that we have always maintained. Those are the laws that we have, and those are laws that are 100% supported by 99% of the Kenyan people, irregardless of where they come from.
So
let me tell you why the numbers that President Kenyatta had is very, very important. He said 99% basically are worried about poverty, hunger, starvation, etc. All these other issues that we have within the country of Kenya, crime, whatever, right? And you're talking about this 1%. So let me make these numbers very relevant for you by showing you some statistics here. Now, when I look at the demographics of America, and I'm looking at the Black American population, here back in 2021, they had us at 40.1 million, correct? And then stating that this year we're at 13.6%. I'm definitely believing we're around 14 to 15%. And these numbers are very, very significant, because if that's the case, if we're 50 million of the population, that means that 2% of the Black American community dwell and reside within the LGBT community, okay? That is what I was talking about. And these numbers are coming from the William Institute of Law, okay? They're stating that 1.2 million Black LGBT adults live in the United States, okay? We're only talking about the adults. I know they have some within that's under the age of 18. I'll keep it that way, right? So we have to look at the paradox. We have to look at the numbers and statistics when we're talking about these things. So if we're 50 million of the population here in America, that means that 2% of our population reside within the LGBT community. So what happens to the other 98% when we put the rights or the advocacy of LGBTQ on the forefront versus economics, Black empowerment, reparations, wiping away qualified immunity, justice, literally justice for all. Now, we take this a little step further. If we are 60 million at 15% of the population, then that's only 1.6% of our total number. So in these cases, numbers really do matter, do they not?
It's a very
you're going to get yourself into trouble because what you've...
Now, family, the disrespect here goes a long way. This is a CNN anchor person, a CNN anchor woman, speaking to the president of another country and telling him he's going to get himself in trouble because he's speaking truth by the cultural and religious society in which his own people have created. Now, I don't want to keep rewinding, fast forward, but you heard what he said, that 99% of Kenyans are agreeing with the Constitution that when we're talking about outlawing rights or same-sex marriages in those nations, that they agree to this. Not me, I'm just the president. And he say, hey, further down the line, if these things change, then so be it. Let the people of Kenya decide on this. But yeah, President Kenyatta, you're going to get yourself in trouble with the CNN anchor woman, yeah.
Categorically just stated is that this is not an issue for us, for the Kenyan people, yes. And you don't think that the idea of their privacy, their equality, their rights is important.
This is,
but it's a global issue right now.
It's important to them where they are.
Why is it not important to you
that it
as
is
president
not
of the country?
Important to me as the leader of 49 million Kenyans, and after, if you want to ask me my personal opinion,
what is your personal opinion?
After I finish my process, I can talk about my personal opinion. But as the leader of the people of the Republic of Kenya. I represent that which our people are desirous to be. And I have no choice, but that is my position.
Would you publicly say that?
You see that trap she tried to lay for him? He didn't fall for it. Now, very savvy politician, President Kenyatta, because she said, what is your personal opinion? He said, hey, listen, when I'm out of office, that's when I'll give my personal opinion. That's what he pretty much said in a nutshell. He's like, I'm not going to have you up here trying to tell you how to run my country. I am fighting and changing policies based upon the people of Kenya. And the reason why this is so important for foundational Black Americans, the reason why it's so important is because political parties, right? You have the conservative Republicans on the right. You have the liberal Democrats on the left. You have the independents, the People's Party in the middle. They're the net. And the people, the Black American people, we're the tennis ball being played left and right. And they keep telling us what's important to us. Putting food on your family's table is most important to you, is it not? Not someone's sexuality. And I'm not saying violate someone's rights. I'm not saying they don't deserve X, Y, and Z. I'm not stating that. But issues have priorities. When you're dealing in business and you're creating a matrix of such, there is a priority list that you give a certain number in which you should handle first. And economics is number one when it comes to Black Americans.
That people who are LGBT, gay members of the Kenyan population should not be discriminated against, should not be violated, should not be abused.
No Kenyan should be abused, should be, mistreated in any particular. Every Kenyan is protected by law, every single Kenyan. But they also must recognize that their freedoms must be taken into the entire context of the society that they live in. Because this is not a question of governments accepting or not accepting. This is a question of society, right?
Currently, it's a legal process.
Yes. And that legal process is based on the society that you live in, and that's why laws are made. So I think that's all I have to say about that particular subject.
Boy. When I think about truth to power, that is what I'm referring to. Now, I applaud President Kenyatta because, in my opinion, he didn't have to even go on there and speak on that. Because, in my opinion, it's crucial to engage in constructive dialogue, is it not? And bridge gaps of understanding the effect of positive change instead of enforcing solutions from afar. But Western powers should support local efforts of tolerance and including, right, and respect for other countries' human rights and their cultural constitutional rights. Because by fostering an atmosphere of collaboration and mutual respect, respect them like you respect those Middle Eastern countries. Respect them like you respect those Asian countries. Because when we're talking about the paradox, right, the paradox approach of how Western powers towards how they, move towards advocating for LGBTQ rights around the world, but mostly in Africa, while being relatively silent. Can I hear? I can't hear him. Guess where I can't hear the Western powers at? In the Middle East and the Asian countries. I can't hear him there. Ah! Got him! Sure can't. Because it's a multifaceted issue that they don't want to address with these other countries because of geopolitical politics. When we look at the historical, political, economic, cultural, religious, and the sovereignty considerations involved, we reveal a complex tapestry of motivations when we look at the comparison between those Middle Eastern countries, Asian countries, and those African countries, do we not? Let's move on. I think this is very important. It's a very important conversation for us to really examine and go over and talk about, because this is a different way that I think we should really maneuver, because there are some things within Black American communities that are more important than your choice of love life, That's not a big issue for most of us. Because as I stated, only roughly 2% of Black Americans are part of that community, while the other 98% are part of another community. But we are all part of the Black community that majority of us struggle from poverty. And we understand the systemic issues that stems all the way from slavery that has been literally systematically shifted and changed, transformed, and transported down to present day. These are the issues that we're at. So Professor Lumumba, who's a Kenyan scholar as well, was brought in to CNN and speaking about this issue on the behalf of Uganda. Let's listen in and see what he has to say on this particular issue as well.
Looking at other issues like your challenges facing the ordinary people, there's also some concerns in terms of how leaders are conducting themselves. I mean, an example of the president of Uganda, who has been in power for quite a long time, the recent law that was passed by that parliament. Many people saying this is a violation of the human rights.
On that one, I agree with the President. It's not about President Museveni. I personally have supported President Museveni on that bill. And this is an issue on which we'll have different opinions. The regime of rights which we are being asked to follow is a regime of rights that was imposed by the Western world in 1948,
Absolutely.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. When the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was being initiated in Paris, no African country was independent. And at that time, they say the civil and political rights were the most important. Then they said that economic and cultural rights were important. Then they say development rights.
That's right. Everything had been dictated by the colonizer of these countries, stemming down from 1948, when none of them had their independence. That is what the man is talking about.
Now they say all rights are interdependent and therefore they are universal. But we must ask ourselves the fundamental question: don't we have rights that are uniquely African? And on the question of this idea of being told periodically by the Western world that these are the rights that we must deal with, it is incumbent upon us to come out very clearly. When the white man came here and imposed laws on us, whether it's the common law or the Dutch Roman law, they told us at that time that there is something called sex against the order of nature. Has nature changed? So we must be very slow.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. He said, see, this is where the Western powers get themselves in trouble, when you have intellectual scholars that can recall history at a drop of a dime. And he's giving them the same energy that they gave to them during their colonial periods. And I'm going to just back this up just a little bit, because you need to hear the impact and the power of Professor Lumumba's words. Please listen on this. This is very, very powerful.
Law, the Dutch Roman law, they told us at that time that there is something called sex against the order of nature. Has nature changed? So we must be very slow to personalize laws. We must be very slow. And these arguments that they bring about bills relating to LGBTQ, they'll never say them to the Arabs. They'll never go to Kuwait. They'll never go to Bahrain. They'll never go to Brunei. They'll never go to Saudi Arabia. They'll never go to Indonesia.
Uh-oh. He going on a tangent. I'm going to back it up just a little bit more, because we need to understand this in the Black American community. Because the Black American community has long been at the forefront of civil rights struggles, have we not? Demanding equal treatment, equal justice, equal dignity, while the rights of the LGBTQ community are undeniably have been at the forefront of the issues in Black America, right? And these are the compelling pieces of light that we must share on our people. Because throughout history, the Black American community has endured the brunt of systematic injustice and oppression, from slavery to Jim Crow laws and ongoing discrimination. Black Americans have faced tremendous barriers to economic prosperity. Economic disparities persist today, with Black individuals experience higher rates of unemployment, lower wages, and limited access to education and health care. Addressing these economic challenges is essential for breaking the chains of intergenerational poverty and forging a path to true equality when it comes to economics and not just justice, because economic empowerment provides a powerful catalyst for broader social change, does it not? When individuals and families have access to stable incomes, quality education, and affordable health care, it is not only enhances their lives, our lives, but also uplifts entire communities. Economic prosperity equips Black Americans with the means to actively participate in shaping policies and creating better communities and driving social change when it comes to us. Economics, right? Economics and crimes are forever linked. Poverty and the lack of opportunities often lead to increased crime rates within Black communities. I want you to look at the Black communities with the highest rate of crime, and then I want you to compare the unemployment rate to the rate of crime in those areas. Because to break this cycle of violence, we must focus on addressing the root cause of crime, which are deeply intertwined with economic disparities. When individuals are offered better prospects, right, through education, job opportunities, and community investment, crime rates automatically drop, right? Because it then fosters safer neighborhoods and environments for everybody that live within those. Economic empowerment provides a platform for promoting Black entrepreneurship and supporting small businesses within the Black community. By fostering an environment that nurtures innovation and economic independence, we can create a vibrant economic ecosystem where Black-owned businesses thrive, thereby increasing wealth and job opportunities within the Black community.
LGBTQ, they'll never say them to the Arabs. They'll never go to Kuwait. They'll never go to Bahrain. They'll never go to Brunei. They'll never go to Saudi Arabia. They'll never go to Indonesia to tell them. It is Africans who they think are tails to be wagged. So on this issue, the government of the Uganda and the people of Uganda, I am with them 100%.
Thank you, Professor Lumumba. Because the racial wealth gap that we Black Americans have remains a stark reality in these United States of America, perpetuating racial equality for generations. Economic empowerment initiatives such as increased access to affordable housing, fair lending practices, and targeted investment in education and job training are the keys to closing the gaps on the disparities that we have within economics, because a stronger financial foundation for Black Americans translate to greater social mobility and enhanced opportunity for our future generations. We don't understand generational wealth because we never had it. We don't understand generational wealth because we never received it. We don't understand generational wealth because every time we try to build it in the system of white supremacy, everything comes tumbling down. They put every issue before us that's not our number one issue. Our number one issue within the Black community is Black empowerment through economics. Cut the damn check, reparations. Give us what you owe. If the only thing you think we're going to do is go out and buy rims and buy cars and buy chains and buy all these silly shit, then give us the check so we can put that money back inside of the community. Give us our check so we can pump the economy with more fiat, with more paper money, instead of gold, silver, copper, and all the things that are more relevant within the currency world than anything else. Then give us the fiat money. You're printing money left and right. Does it really matter? Does it really matter? I don't think so. Because by prioritizing economic empowerment and investing in Black communities, we can begin to dismantle the systematic barriers that have held back Black Americans for far too long. For far too long. Only by fostering a society that embraces inclusivity, equity, and economic justice can we truly honor the legacy of our ancestors and our forefathers and their movement to create a future where all Black Americans can thrive, regardless of where you come from, how you speak, and how you do what you do.
There is no freedom outside of the law.
How do you balance
Balance-
the decision or right to choose?
Choose what? The choice must be limited according to the mores of a different community. And in any event, should we be talking about LGBTQ when we have no food on the table? And
oh, hell no.
Very important. That part right there seals the deal on every single thing. Should we be focused on one thing where the survival of our people, is the most important thing that we really should be talking about versus a choice? Especially here in America, where there's been all sort of executive orders for a particular group. Should we really be worrying about what political candidate has that on their within their campaign runs? Or should we be listening to candidates that are speaking truth to power on the regards of Black Americans when it comes to reparations, when it comes to equal justice, like let justice prevail, truly, and not let the system of white supremacy reign over the justice system in which you bought for all Americans to be safe. I'm just stating a fact here. But these guys said it better than I ever could.
should we be talking about LGBTQ when we have no food on the table? And the danger, including with you journalists, is that now when you interview people, you have your own position that you want to impose on us. We refuse. We know.
Got him.
Got him.
See, him and the president basically said the same thing. When you interview people, you want to impose your views and your belief and your culture on us. That's not who we are.
Including with you journalists, is that now when you interview people, you have your own position that you want to impose on us. We refuse. We know.
In the United Nations Human Rights Council.
But the United Nations Human Rights Council, is it some god? Is it not a body that is composed of human beings who have created a body where some are permanent members and some are not permanent members? Remember, in matters of morality, numbers don't matter. It is the mores. You may disagree with me, but I'm telling you without batting an eyelid and unapologetically that some of us oppose LGBTQ, and you who are anchors, I'm now telling you, because I've seen it with other anchors from other parts of the world, you have a position and you want to impose on us. We refuse. Yours is to midwife, to ensure that my views, if others have a different view, you go and interview them. But from where I sit, I oppose LGBTQ with every ounce in my life.
Including the
I understand the guy's position. I don't advocate hate for any group or any people. And I understand the position of these scholars and presidents in which you heard here today. So to give relevance, correlation, and comparison, I also want you to see the other countries that you don't even hear about that have opposing same-sex laws that's quote-unquote anti-LGBTQ. And the question I have for you guys is, why aren't these Western powers going to these other countries? Okay, you're going to see a lot of African countries in here. And you're going to see some other countries that we're going to name here, and read some of the laws and then read the imprisonment if you violate those laws. And I think it's important for you to understand geopolitical politics, societal norms and change in America when it comes to Black America, and mostly dealing with the Democratic Liberal Party, right? Here we go. Now, I'll leave Afghanistan out of this, but Algeria, it's outlawed. You will receive 2 months or 2 years in prison and a fine. Bangladesh, outlawed. Okay, Cameroon, Burundi, okay. Chad, let me see, Cook Islands, it says outlawed, 5 to 7 years in prison. Egypt, outlawed, 3 months to 3 years in prison, may be placed in special reformity upon completion of prison fine. Okay, Eritrea, 5 to 7 years is outlawed. Ethiopia, okay, we're gonna get to some, Grenada, 10 years in prison. What else do we have here? Iran, sentence ranges from 31 lashes, wow, to 100 lashes to death. So definitely don't go there with Iran. Jamaica, 10 years in prison and hard labor. Here we go with Kenya. 5 years for indecent practice between males, 14 years for carnal knowledge against the order of nature. Kuwait, okay, now we're getting to some of these Middle Eastern countries. Kuwait, 1 year in prison, $1,000 Kuwaiti denarii fine, or both. See, on February 16, 2022, the Kuwaiti Constitutional Court ruled Article 198 of the Penal Code, which arbitrarily criminalizes in imitating the opposite sex, unconstitutionally, finding it inconsistent with Kuwaiti's constitution that enshrines personal freedoms, okay? Lebanon, 1 year in prison. Libya, up to 5 years in prison. Malaysia, that's an Asian country, outlawed. Let's see what the fines are here. Male person posing as a woman, female person posing as a man, up to 3 years in prison. Fines and mandatory counseling, okay? The Maldives, so don't go to Maldives with that mess. Sexual intercourse with a person of the same sex, indecent acts with a person of the same sex, unlawful marriage, 6 months to 8 years in prison, up to 100 lashes for an unlawful sexual intercourse, okay? We got Mauritius, let's go to Morocco, okay? 6 months to 3 years in prison, fines of between 120 and 1,000 dirhams. What else we have here? We got Nigeria. See, that's why all of these people come to America, and that's why you see what you see. And then the buffering of the political class, and why the power is shifting from Black Americans to immigrants, and not just because of LGBTQ. There's a lot of other variables within that, but this is on the table, okay? It states here in Nigeria, up to 14 years in prison, the death penalty. Nigeria falls into the mixed sentences category because it has various types of laws under both criminal and Sharia law, which criminalize consensual same-sex conduct. It also criminalizes discussions of LGBTQ rights. You can't even advocate, protest, march. Yeah, you're going to jail. Please, okay, let me see. Let me keep moving here. Oman, 6 months to 3 years in prison. Pakistan, 2 to 10 years. What else do we have here? Oh, this is a very, very popular one because we do a lot of business. Some people may say Qatar, some people might say Qatar, right? But it states here, sodomy. It says leading, instigating, or seducing a male anyhow for sodomy or dissipation. 1 to 3 years in prison, flogging, that means lashes, death penalty under Sharia law. Let's keep moving. Saudi Arabia, we do a lot of business with Saudi Arabia, especially these two countries that I just named, Qatar as well as Saudi Arabia, when it comes to oil, right? Natural resources, which we need to keep our gas prices down. But you don't hear them over there advocating for LGBTQ rights over there, do you not? It is outlawed in Saudi Arabia. It states here that Saudi Arabia has arrested and sentenced people to flogging, that's those lashes, and imprisonment for cross-dressing despite having no written law prohibiting it, right? Category of offense, homosexual acts as interpreted based on Sharia law. All right, Sierra Leone, Senegal, Somali Islands, Somalia, South Sudan, Sri Lanka. When we go to Sri Lanka, you get up to 10 years in prison and also a fine. We got Tanzania, Syria, Sudan, Togo, Tunisia. Let's go to Tunisia. It says outlaws 3 years in prison. Turkmenistan, it states here 2 years in prison, between 5 to 10 years in prison if repeated. Then Uganda does not play. Unnatural, indecent acts, carnal knowledge against the order of nature, gross indecency. It states here, life in prison. Life in prison. Yemen, okay, outlawed as well. It says that homosexual acts between men, 100 lashes, 1 year in prison. death by stoning, okay? We're talking about old school biblical source of punishment, okay? Homosexual act between women, 100 lashes up to 3 years in prison. Uzbekistan, up to 3 years in prison. The United Arab Emirates, those North African countries as well as a lot of Middle Eastern countries. They're stating here that any male disguised in a female apparel and enters in the disguise a place reserved for women or where entry is forbidden at the time for other than women, up to 1 year in prison and a fine up to 10,000 dirhams. And I got some more information there. Zambia and Zimbabwe. So we saw about roughly anywhere from 3 to 7 Middle Eastern countries, maybe about 2 or 4 Asian countries that you see that they have outlawed in years in prison and punishment and lashes. I believe they did lashes in the Maldives. They did lashes in the Maldives. So the reason why this is important, because if you are part of that community, don't go to these countries, okay? Don't go to these countries and not understanding their laws. Oh, I'm an American, but you're in our country. You have to obey our law. Maldives, very, very beautiful, right? It states here, 6 months to 8 years in prison and up to 100 lashes. Up to 100 lashes. You talking about ass whooping. Huh. You talking about giving honor to the ancestors, get them 100 lashes. But I digress, family. That's all I have for you guys today. I just really wanted to bang the drum because election season is coming up. And it's very important for us to stay focused and not have these people to deflect all these different things that's going on. They want us to pay attention to the, banning or the reversal of affirmative action in education. Now, some of you, very few of Black Americans benefited from affirmative action in education. A lot of you have benefited from. Now, if I'm wrong, in the comment section, whenever you see this video, please tell me if you've benefited from affirmative action in education. Please put that at the bottom. Because I can tell you other non-white groups that far more benefited from affirmative action than Black Americans. That I can tell you. And majority of these people I'm referring to are immigrants. Because we understand that foundational Black Americans, U.S. freedmen, American descendants of a slave, descendants of American slaves, we are not immigrants. This is our country. Our forefathers and ancestors built this country. With that being said, you guys have a great day.